first question I was going to ask you, so the reason I kind of wanted to chat to you, well, I mean, thanks for sitting down with me. We do live together, so you're kind of like, I feel like I've somewhat forced you into this.
Absolutely.
I'm like, GM, I'm moving all the furniture, we're sitting down, bear with me for what, that's now like an hour now that it took me to.
It's okay, the ankle monitor's on. I think.
But no, the reason I was wanting to chat to you is because I feel like you and I actually have a very similar trajectory in life. You know, neither of us, I feel like, have followed too much of a traditional career path. And I was going to ask, like, with regards to your career path, do you feel like it is, I would assume it's also kind of shaped your view of like, do you feel like it's shaped how you are as a person? The fact that you haven't followed like such a like rigid career path. You've kind of had like a bunch of experience and...
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's the opposite. I think it's how I am and who I am as a person has actually guided how I've chosen the path I've gone down. You know, I don't think the path it was laid out in front for me, as some people believe, you know, destiny, fate, what have you. You know, I think it's more of who I am and however that person came to be, whether it's my upbringing, you know, the ontological aspect of it, you know, I am who I am as how I am is, but I think that's more of what's guided me towards the choices I've made. I don't think my career has made me who I am, or my lack of, let's say. It's more who I am is the reason I've basically walked a bazillion paths with no stress, really, no worry about it.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So what you're saying is who you are as a person has dictated the path that you've gone, not the other way around, which is actually 100%. What I was kind of assuming. Wow, that's really interesting. I guess I never really thought that. Well, I guess you obviously were saying you've got like a ton of like, and I don't necessarily want to talk about that industry specifically, hospitality, but you were saying you've got a ton of experience in hospitality. Do you think working in hospitality has, you know, shaped you even more then? Because I feel like hospitality is it's an industry that I feel like can bleed into so many others. You know, it's all about like customer care and like being empathetic and patient and coming up with, like dealing with people. Like, do you feel like that is...
I think it's definitely, it spoke to me early, but more as a means to an end. From a very young age, I was absolutely obsessed with geography, and I literally had one goal growing up, and that was to see the world. And I think early on, I learned that in hospitality, specifically, I could probably get jobs all over the world. And so it was a means to an end. But then that also it just ended up aligning very well with my personality. Like, I'm a very classic extroverted introvert. I get my social battery filled at work, but outside of work, I don't want to talk to anybody. I could care less. And, but if I don't have something that does put me in front of people, and generally it's been through work, I definitely feel that there's something lacking. And, specifically with hospitality, especially as my career, I guess you know, this is going to be a very interesting conversation because I wouldn't say I have a career. Like I would, even though I've worked predominantly in hospitality, in many different venues, hotels, restaurants, bars, nightclubs, cruise ships, you know, and even the last couple of years back in transportation side of things with tour guiding, bus driving, things of that nature, which, you know, is hospitality, but it's a very different avenue of it. I've always kind of worked in those realms. I have stepped outside of it a few times in my life as well. But it was always a means to an end. For me, it was like, okay, well, if I want to go here, I could do that there. And, you know, I haven't done a count in a few years, but I'm well over 130 jobs in my life, easily. It might be more. And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but it's always funny because certain people, when you tell them that, they're like, how is that possible? Or like, have you never been scared when you're out of work or when you're changing? And that has never entered my mind. I've never been afraid to not have a job. I've always looked at it as like, well, I want to be there or I want to do this. So let's just go do that or go there and everything else will fall into place. Right. So, yeah. I
mean, you just answered one of the questions I was going to ask you, which is exactly what you were saying there. And how do you feel with what people would think of as uncertainty? Because I feel like a lot of people, and I would have included myself in this earlier in my life, not necessarily now. Whereas I think a lot of people prefer stability, and what I mean by that in like a traditional sense would be like, I live here, I have this job, it's got a path within the company, I'm going to go down that path in 10 years time, I can do X, Y, and Z. and the question was going to be like, how do you feel between like that stability and, I mean, what the life that you actually live, which is, not that it's unstable, but obviously you just said you've had like 100 something plus jobs. It seems like that kind of like you feed into that.
Oh, absolutely. Or does it feed me? I don't know. I mean, that, and obviously neither one of us are therapists, but I think we've also both, we've both done a lot of self-work. We are very self-aware, I believe. We're both very into, constantly learning. For me, life is always, you're always learning. You're always striving to become a better version of yourself. And either that's through work experience, life experience, but also through, absorbing knowledge, books, philosophers, things of that nature. And, when you come back to that stability question, and again, that's why I caveated this with, we're not therapists, because I'm sure a therapist would just go to town on us right now. To me, the thought of being stable in that sense, I've got this job I've had for 10 years. I've followed this path. That is a fucking, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want, yeah.
That is like a legit nightmare to me. Like that scares the hell out of me. And again, that's why if there was a therapist in the room, I'm sure they'd interject with, well, that's this personality trait. And I'm like, I wouldn't necessarily want to go down that road and actually explore that, because I do explore a lot of my interior thoughts and what drives me. And, I have a very creative side as well. It's not super public, but we discussed earlier this week, and you were surprised when I wrote Jack a poem yesterday. And I'm a very creative writer. I've literally written like notebooks upon notebooks of poetry, and it's just all sitting out there. And that is my creative release. And I don't know how that ties into the whole like fear of the stability thing, or is it just a side thing for me? But the whole stability question, I feel like what I do is much more mentally stable than people that force themselves into a linear path, a linear progress. And that, especially in the last 50 years, that whole societal push of go to school, go to university, get a job, work up your way up the ladder, and we're watching the millennials completely fall apart because it was a lie. It was sold to them, and they're all struggling now. And I'm just grateful that, I'm late Gen X, so I kind of missed that whole thing, but I still had that pressure, not really a ton, but I'm grateful that my parents never really pushed any kind of agenda of that nature on it. And did that create who I am then? I mean, that's the whole argument, right? So yeah, but even now just thinking about it, like, gives me goosebumps thinking about it, and I'm almost 50. And the fact, like, even now at 50, if I was like, oh, you're going to get this job, you're going to stay in it for the next 12 years, and this is the path that will follow. No, I'll pull a Hemingway shotgun in a shed out back. Like, no, thank you. So,
yeah, I think I would say, maybe not necessarily a shotgun, but I think I definitely feel the same way in the sense of the rigidity of what you were saying there, like a 12-year career span. And I guess it's different. I think if you love what you do, then it's different. If you're doing 12 years of, I mean, say you're able to do like your creative outlet as that 12-year thing, like I bet you'd love it. But yeah, but usually it's not that. Usually the average person, which we are, like, you fall into the 9 to 5, 12-year thing that you did when you left school, because that's the first job, like, kind of like took you in. And yeah, I think, with regards to, so yeah, it sounds like you value, again, this is another question that I was going to ask you, but with regards to, and I am asking this because I struggle with this, the struggle between freedom and like quote unquote settling down and having like a responsible life. Now, you can have freedom and be responsible, obviously, but I think we're kind of similar. Like I'm maybe just slightly younger in the sense of like, I'm now at that age where like, having a kid and family and like a house and all that stuff is a normal thing to do. And while I do want to do that, like there's a part of me that thinks, is settling down, like, are you losing something or are you gaining something? And I think I would assume that there's like a give and take of both, but
there is. And also, like, we talk about normal things that society expects. And of course, it also relates to which society did we grow up in. We obviously grew up with Western values, Western society. But I think that there's those dynamics shift and change. And it's still, a very individual thing, even though it's in the grand scope of, societal norms and group norms, et cetera. But it still comes down to individuality. I'm not here to poo-poo on people that decided on that normal life, settling down, having a family. Because I have friend groups that have gone that route. And, I can say quite honestly, like some of those friend groups that have the whole wife and kids and this, and they're very happy with that path. And I don't think they question it. But I have friends in that same line who, like, in all honesty, say they question it all the time. Did they make the right decision? Did they do this? So, and that's not to say that I, of course, also have times where I'm like, did I make the right decision? But my personal philosophy is always, especially in the last 15 years, has definitely geared a little more towards Stoicism and just really being present in the present and, maybe not accepting what my lot is, but just accepting the fact that, like, I will never be able to go back and change things. And, I'm very conscious of that. I generally do not allow myself to have regret. And I think that's actually a forceful way to make myself enjoy the present. And when you're surrounded by people who do have regret and they talk about it all the time, and you're going to notice I go all over the place because I'm very open-minded. I've like studied and done self-awareness on all the stuff, and that whole self-manifestation, right? And I'm a big believer in that as well. And, when you're surrounded by people who just manifest themselves on regret and the past and this and that, you see how it affects them in their day-to-day. And, myself just make it's almost a physical effort to just focus on the present, focus on who can I surround myself with to be a better person, to enjoy my day-to-day. I do not surround myself with people that are negative or don't offer anything to society or to those around them. And, again, I have a little more life experience now. I've definitely noticed that whenever I made that conscious decision, which I can physically say was probably in my early 30s, everything was so much better after that, when I just stopped surrounding myself or hanging out with people that were negative or living with regret and et cetera, et cetera. So, but I'm also not going to sit here and harp on and say that the only way to live life is the way I've lived it. And
because I mean, I know people who would look at my life and be like, that looks terrible. Like constantly kind of not constantly moving, but moving abroad, living abroad, having different jobs, and they probably think that sucks. And whereas I don't think their life sucks, but, they probably, kind of born in the same place, work in the same place, have a family. And I guess what you're saying there is like, you can't really poo-poo anyone's idea of contentment.
Curiously, like, you must have people in life that are like super positive and like, I can't believe you get to do this and you do that. Like,
yeah, I mean, I said to one of my mates who is actually really happy with his life, so he's not like a negative person, but I remember one day he said to me something like, I can't remember what I said, but I said something and he was like, I said to him, sorry, I was like, I wish I was in your boat. Like, he's married, got a kid, beautiful wife, have a house, like fairly stable. And I was like, mate, I wish I had what you had. And I never expected his answer to be, I wish I had what you've had. Now, he obviously loves his life, so it wasn't like he wanted to swap it with me. But he was like, I haven't traveled to I haven't lived abroad, haven't had half the experience you've had, don't have the freedom that you have. And while he wants the life he has, like, yeah, you're right. Like, he was very much like, it was a bit of an eye opener to me to be like, wow, I didn't actually even think about all that, all the stuff that I have that someone else might look on and envy. And I guess, yeah. But so you were saying, like, was it 15 years ago that you kind of started this whole kind of self education? Have you always been like that?
No, but there's always been an element of that in me. Like, I always think back to when I was early teens, like 12-ish, 13. And like even at that young age, I knew that going into like getting out of junior high and going into high school, and like, I was just so, I don't know the word for it, but like, even my parents and like even my peer group now, that we're all, in our 40s and 50s, they'll all say back to when they knew me as like a teenager, they're like, you were just not like everybody else. You were already ahead of like you were already just going through the motions to get through high school. And I was a straight A student, like just killed it with marks. But I was so bored. Excuse me, so bored. Like literally none of that excited me. Whether it's a blessing or just whatever it is, I have always had the ability to just pick up things, learn them, especially like the standardized way that you're tested in schools with just like memorization. I've never had an issue with that. I think I have like a semi-photographic memory, because I literally can read something once, know it, and like the whole just regurgitating information. I never had to study. Like I would just read through something once and I could go write the exam, get 100%, like literally. And of course that just annoyed the hell out of everybody.
That annoys me right now.
So, but I was aware that I was lucky to be like that.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, maybe in some respects, I didn't use that skill to my advantage for certain things. You know what I mean? Like, I certainly could have used it to go in. I know if I'd gone to university in whatever, engineering or what have you, I probably would have, you know, knocked it out of the park. I'd probably for sure be that super successful, you know, but that was never what drew me. You know, I literally just wanted to get the fuck done with high school, get out of there. And I was a very popular kid. I had a lot of friends. I was friends with all the different friend groups. But I was a little bit of an oddball. Like I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs. But I was friends with all the kids that did. I was always the DD for like the bush parties and everything else. And I had a great time. But there was always just, and all my friends from high school for sure would tell you that they knew that they could see in me that I just wanted to finish it and get the hell out of there. And,
do you know why that is? Like, can you look back now and be like why you had such a desire to run? So I can, so like to get my, so my sisters and I, we all grew up in the country. So, we all live abroad. I live in Canada. Mm-hmm. Sophie lives in London, which I guess is the UK, but you know, England compared to Scotland. Alice lives in Burgos in Spain, like northern Spain. And I think that we all moved abroad because we lived in the country. So like we couldn't really, like we didn't live in the town or the city. So like it was always a pain in the arse for any of us to go anywhere and do anything. So I think like as much as our life was awesome, so I'm not saying that we were like deprived in any way, but I think because we, for like up until we were like 18, like we're so so reliant on our mom and dad taking us anywhere. Like we didn't have the freedom to just go do what we wanted. I think that's why the three of us all, as soon as we could, like we all left. But so is there anything that you're like, you think back on, you're like, had this desire?
No, I couldn't tell you what propelled me because I didn't have worldly parents. Like they're lovely. But you know, they weren't worldly at all. And even to this day, they're not overly worldly. They're super genuine. They're very loving. But they're like, and my sister is, you know, lived in Canada. Her whole life is not super adventurous. It definitely doesn't run in the family, if that's, you know, one way to look at it. But like I mentioned earlier, there's also no pressure. Like my parents were literally just absolute no pressure. In any regards, like whatever I did, they were happy with what I did. So, so here's an interesting thing though. Like I always think about when I think about this now, like I think if I had kids now and when I was in grade 11, so halfway through grade 11, and I talked about how I was always just like utterly bored out of my mind. Like I just was not motivated or I don't think motivation is the right word. I just was, because it was so easy for me. Like the school aspect of things, making friends was really easy. You know, schoolwork was really easy, but I just had this insane boredom. Like I'm like, there's more to life. There's more to life. There's more to life. And I had this in me. And halfway through grade 11, I just up and left one morning in my car.
Wait, you just grade 11?
16, 17.
Right, okay.
February, you know, I remember the day exactly. I used to drive all my friends. There was a group of us and I was the driver. I would drive like 4 or 5 of us to school every morning. But I got up that morning. I was like, I can't do it. I can't go to school today. I need to know if there's what's out there. Very randomly. And like I said, I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs. I'm sure this was like a mental breakdown of some kind in today's parlance.
Yeah.
But back then, it wasn't a big deal. And I'll tie it into how my parents were just so laissez-faire because they trusted me and they understood maybe what I was, or, you know, maybe they knew more about me than I did. But anyways, grade 11, halfway through, I woke up one morning, there's got to be more to life than this. I need to know other options. And I don't mean options, just I need to have a different experience for the next little bit. So I literally got in my car. I lived in Edmonton at the time. I drove to Calgary, parked my car, and lived on the streets for 2 months.
Really?
Yeah. And I did it solely just because I wanted to experience something that was maybe cathartic, just something that would just challenge my worldviews. And I just needed to know. And it was just a very random thing. I phoned my parents from Calgary, and this is very old school days, on a payphone. I said, Mom, Dad, I'm all right, but I just need a change. I'm just figuring out who I am. And this is where I talk about like that world compared to today. My parents, my mom, bless her, was like, we understand. We know you don't do drugs, or like, it's okay. When you're ready to come home, come home. We won't worry about you. Like if any kid 16, 17 did that today, there'd be a fucking dragnet out for them. There'd be police search. You wouldn't be allowed to do that. And also with social media and phones, and you just physically couldn't do it.
You could track them.
Yeah. Whereas now, like back then, and yeah, I literally lived on the streets for 2 months. I met some unreal characters, and maybe formed a bit of my worldviews on stuff. And then after 2 months, I came back.
So can I ask, what did you actually, like, give me a day-to-day?
So day-to-day, honestly, so I would sleep in my car.
Right, okay.
And then I would
That's like high-class homelessness,
yeah, high-class homeless. And it was, there's a park just south of the downtown core in Calgary called Stanley Park.
Yeah.
And I was parked there. And then just during the day, I would literally just go walk the streets and talk to homeless people, hang out with them. I did make a bit of a crew that, just would take me in. And, the backstories of these people were very interesting. A lot of the classic, the drug addicted ones, broken homes, et cetera, et cetera. But there was also some like outliers, like rich kids who literally were just told by their parents they couldn't do this or that. And they were like, well, fuck it, I'm just going to leave and go live on the streets. But that would be a whole discussion on just like the different kinds of people and like how it formed my worldview of like even homeless today and drug addiction. Like I've probably got some very interesting opinions on that, but that's another discussion.
Did you have a little bit of money so you could buy food and stuff?
Yeah. So like I always worked in high school as well. That's another thing we talked about. Like school was so easy for me. I worked full time through high school all the time, pretty much worked in restaurants. I was a busboy. But yeah, when I went down to Calgary, I wasn't destitute. I had money. Like
you're just kind of like chilling in your.
Literally, I would just chill my car during the day or at night, and then during the day, I'd literally just walk around, make friends. Like I would drive to this one campground that was just north of Calgary, it was much smaller than shower. Like I'd literally hop the fence, go use the shower, go back in my car, go back downtown, and just walk the streets. And even to this day, when I talk to younger people and they're like, "Oh, I'm just so full of this or that, anxiety, this and this," I'm like, go for a walk. Preferably in nature, but honestly, or even just go for a walk, no headphones, no phone, just go walk with your own self for 4 to 6 hours. Trust me, you'll work a lot of that shit out in your head. But my view on like, especially Gen Z, and like there's so many people afraid to go in their own head. And I think a lot of that is just what society tells you about that, and like just the overdiagnosis of everything.
I think it's also probably partly because like I was saying before we started this, that you can constantly distract yourself.
Yeah.
Podcasts, internet, whatever. So
yeah, it reminds me, there's a really funny comedian, I can't remember his name, but he talks about mindfulness and like how it's such a big thing. He's like, yeah, when, he's my age, and like his whole bit is, yeah, when I was a teenager, we had to be mindful because when you're sitting at a bus stop waiting for a bus for 2 hours, you have nothing to distract you. So you go into yourself and you blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
and
you just think stuff through.
Yeah, you think stuff through, and there's just such a need for that in this day and age, but I don't think it'll ever come to fruition. Just the way society has shifted and the way technology shifted. It's so funny that now you have to like it's like, we're going to force you to put your phone away for 4 hours. Whereas like, that just wasn't even a thought. Like I honestly have mad respect for people who raise children nowadays, because I think it must be absolutely the hardest thing to do with all the distractions that even as a parent, your distractions, like,
yeah. I mean, I'm someone who's super conscious, as you know, of being like on my phone all the time, and I'm still on my phone all the time, and I have like barely any apps. Like I don't go in the news, don't go in nothing, and I will still spend like an hour a day on my phone, like doing like just scrolling. Or,
same, right?
Yeah, even like going to the toilet. Like I know that's the kind of funny like classic thing, but like fucking hell, like going to the toilet and just like.
Yeah, the toilet used to be the mindful spot. Just sit on the toilet, think about your life, and Now it's how do I distract myself for 2 minutes of bowel movements?
Yeah, no, I know. And honestly, like today I was walking from the change room to the gym, and I was, as you know, like I was going to do like some heavy bag stuff. So I couldn't, like, when I do that, I don't listen to music because I'm concentrating on the combinations and stuff. But and I didn't do it, but I was like, I should have put my headphones in to walk the 2 minutes from the change room to the bag. And obviously I didn't, but it's mental that was even a thought in my mind that I was like, 2-minute walk, I should probably fucking listen to the 2 minutes of a podcast. And I guess I'm like, I guess I have the wherewithal to recognize that insanity in my mind. But so I guess what I'm saying is that's me as someone who is conscious of that. Yeah. Never mind being a little kid who has grown up fully in social media and the online world.
Dude, there's an evolutionary aspect to this. Yeah. And it's like hyper speeding up evolution. And it's that mix of technology with like, I don't know what scientific term would be for that, but like it's kind of a scary spot to be, where technology is actually fast forwarding human evolution, like the physical evolution. Yeah. I'd be curious to see what route that takes as well. But.
So after I'm laughing at the mentalness of it because I've never heard you say that before. So after the 2 months, high class homelessness, how did you, like, what did you?
So after this little 2 month
stint
literally is what it was. I did go back. Because I did that February, March. Yeah, I got back around, I think, mid-May, and went back
to school.
I didn't go back to classes. I went and wrote my exams, and this is where people get like, what the fuck? I aced most of my exams. So even though I got basically zeros in a lot of my classes, I did well enough on the finals to pass grade 11. Like I didn't have to redo anything. Right. And then, but then that summer, talked to a lot of my friends and my folks as well. And I was like, I was this close to not going to grade 12. I was like, I don't need to go. Like and I
don't have to, do you?
Well,
because I know in the UK, you don't have to do the last year.
No, I mean, I wouldn't have. Well, this is the thing, right? Like, so like, and my parents were like on board with like, look, you do what you want to do. Like, we're not worried about you. Like I was working, I was supporting myself. But at the end of the day, I did finally make the decision. Look, in the overall scheme, society, it's better if you have your high school equivalent, right? So I went to grade 12 and got straight A's and did really well, even though I had like over 200 skips. I still aced all my classes, and they actually, my high school was not going to give me my diploma because I had so many skips, but I had great marks. So anyways, it was a big whole thing. I also, and again, my views on religion, I went to Catholic school, but I did not go to any of my religion classes. And the school was like, well, you don't get your diploma unless you have your religion credits. And we actually fought them on. I can't remember. My mom actually went and got a lawyer and drafted it. Anyways, long story short, you can pass high school without your religion credits even if you went to Catholic school. Right, so basically a big F you to the wrap up.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny. My mom and dad were the complete opposite of that. There was no fucking way that they would ever have let me to like skip anything. Yeah. I remember, that's not even I wouldn't even have been a like question. Like even when I left school, it was like leave school, go university, which I didn't go to. I ended up doing a trade, but like leave school, go university, get a career. Like that, they were very much on that.
Yeah. They didn't give you an option. They're like, you have to do this, or.
So at the time, no, but as it transpired, it's not how it panned out. Yeah. At the time, my mom and dad are kind of funny in the sense of like, when I was growing up, there was like, no tattoos, like they weren't like super, my mom and dad aren't really, when we were kids, I think they came across as being quite strict, but they're not at all. And I think I realized this because everything that they were strict about, I would end up doing. And then they were like, okay. So like, like don't get tattoos, got a tattoo, I got a motorbike. I mean, it was really small, so it wasn't like a super fast thing, but like, don't get a motorbike, got a motorbike, don't go to university, didn't go to university. Now, granted, I was doing all these things though, and I think they could, maybe similar to your mum and dad, that they could see like, right, well, he's still a functioning member of society, had my moments off the roller coaster, but they were totally like.
Yeah, but I also had the balance of, and I want to put this lightly, so if she ever listens to this, she doesn't take the wrong way. But my sister was the opposite of me. Oh, really? Like fell into the wrong crowd. Yeah. Super bad into this and that and that. And she was a handful for my parents. So I think they were a lot more hands off with me because they were dealing with her so much. And they knew that for whatever reason, they knew that no matter what I did, even if it was a little odd, it wasn't going to be down to a path of like literally in the gutter homeless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah, I was the third. I had two older sisters. I was the third, and I was also a boy. So I think they were just like, fucking whatever. Like, yeah. I remember again having a couple moments where, for various reasons, like police had turned up at the house looking for me, and I again thought my mom and dad were gonna like lose the plot. I worked for my dad at this point in time. The police had gone to my mom and dad's house. I'd gotten a fight. That's what had happened. Got in a fight, and they were looking for me, not as the instigator, but because just as like a follow up thing to it. Anyway, so they went to my mom and dad. They went to my mom's house. So the police turned up there, and they're like, "Is Richard Martin here?" And she's like, "No, he's at work." And I worked for my dad at the time. So then she sends him up to my dad's work, and it's like it was a factory. It was an engineering factory, so it's old school. So like, there's a call coming out over the tannoy. Like, can Richard Martin please come to the office? My dad's work is like, it was all open plan at that point in time. And there's quite a few. I mean, it was an office, so there's like maybe like 15 or 20 people there.
Like cubicles.
Yeah. But everyone can see the reception is my point. And I walk in, and my dad's two police officers there, and my dad's standing there with them. And I honestly was like, I thought he was going to lose the plot, and he was loving the whole thing. So yeah, sorry, I can't even remember where I went on that tangent there, but
yeah. So I don't know if this is right, but that just strikes me as so Scottish.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wasn't even that big. It obviously sounds kind of crazy with like your whole. Sorry, I think what I was getting at was like, even in that situation, they were like totally cool with it. Yeah. Like, sorry, I was saying I was the third and I was the youngest and I was a boy. I think they kind of just thought that was like part and parcel of it. But yeah, I mean, that story sounds kind of crazy. It honestly wasn't crazy. What had happened was we'd been on a night out, got in a handbag fight with these guys. But one of the guys we got in a fight with was getting charged by the police because they'd caught him, and they were just following up. So it wasn't even that and obviously I was like an 18-year-old kid. I wasn't going to tell my mom and dad every time we got in a fight in the city centre, but it wasn't even that cool a thing. But again, like, yeah, I fully expected them to like lose the plot, and they were fucking. My mom wasn't even that bothered, which was super surprising. But yeah, it definitely sounds like your parents were different.
Well, it sounds like both our parents recognized at our core we're, for better or worse, some good people. Like, we're not really going to get into. Yeah, we're not malicious in intent. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and I think like getting into having kids, which neither of us have, but like looking at how my mom and dad like raised us, like they were. Now that I actually look back in it, they were actually really hands off. Like, I think when I was that age, I thought they were super strict, but now older looking back, I'm like, nah, like they were. They were very good at letting us just like learn our own mistakes. Which again, at the time I didn't really appreciate that, but yeah, I definitely think that certainly helped me.
Yeah.
But
but they let you make mistakes. That's a big difference than I think what happens nowadays. Just also because your mistakes are amplified because they can be videoed and seen, and like think
totally,
back to our teenagers,
oh my God,
the shit I got away with. Not that I got away with, but just the fact that there was no repercussions in the sense of like it wasn't videotaped and it doesn't come back to haunt you, and like even minor stuff, because minor stuff nowadays can turn into like just
like I definitely was in a generation. So Facebook became a thing when I was at high school. Like that's when it got introduced. So I was kind of like, I was like borderline, like didn't have social media and then had it still like young.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of the pictures and stuff we posted online, like they disappeared because it was on MySpace, and MySpace is gone.
Oh,
whereas nowadays it's like
I loved MySpace.
Yeah.
What was your MySpace name?
Oh, I can't even remember.
Pain Lives in Flowers.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, I think mine was just. We had a thing in the UK called Bebo as well, which was like MySpace. It's like a shitty MySpace, to be honest. But I guess coming back to the conversation though, so I was going to ask you, like, with hospitality being such a industry in which you need to like look for people, like look out for people, care for people, like accommodate their needs. Do you think do you think you already had that aspect of your personality, or did hospitality kind of like change the way that you approach relationships outside of work?
Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
That's come up too in a lot of like conversations.
It's kind of like nature nurture a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit for sure. I think it suited who I was as a person. And I think back, like my dad has always worked the trades, but when he was younger, like I know when I was a baby, my parents both worked and my mom definitely when she's younger had hospitality background. And then she was a translator and did some other work as growing up. But my dad, I think after I was born, really focused more on the trades, and he was a welder for the majority of his career. And definitely, I cannot picture my dad working in a restaurant of any kind, even though I definitely see traits of him in me, definitely. But the hospitality side and just the accommodation, like that's wanting to give people a great experience, I definitely have that in me. So yeah, it definitely suited my personality, and I think I found a comfort working in hospitality. And yeah, I don't think it made me who I am. It's definitely it just aligned with me really well, and it still does to this day. Like I don't know if I'll ever work restaurants again, just because that environment has changed quite a bit over the last, I would say, 7-8 years, to a point where I don't really feel like I'm authentic in a restaurant environment anymore, just for certain reasons. Like I've definitely enjoyed more the tour guiding. It's just, there's just a little more authenticity to it. Yeah. Could do a whole podcast on that.
I think also the company that you work for as well, like they encourage individualism.
Oh, 100%.
Like MLBC want you to have a personality, whereas I guess in the restaurant, it's more like just fucking wherever they want you to be it.
Yeah. And even places I find that, like even like smaller independent stuff that says, oh yeah, you get to be your own person here. There's such a layer of just treading and being very careful of, what is said, what is, I don't know. It's a very fine line to walk there as well. But yeah, I've definitely found my last 3 years, and mind you, through the pandemic, obviously a whole different beast as well there. Just me personally overworked and,
because you said you're working like a high class restaurant, and
no, during COVID I went back to Jasper and worked in a hotel, and just that dynamic was, but I think the whole world during the whole COVID, whatever side you were on, regarding to, was it overreach, was it underreach, I won't even get into my whole personal opinion on that, but I think it was such a personal strain on everybody involved. And then, just working in hospitality during those 2 years, when you had guests facing those same guests also on either end of the spectrum, and you're trying to mediate all that, I would say legitimately, like, I am not someone who gets stressed. I am so easygoing. Like, things just roll right off me. Humanity, nothing surprises me. Nothing surprises me. But I think during COVID specifically, like, just having to mediate all the time in that environment, was, I think, the only time in my life where I got physically sick the second half or first half of COVID, and it was definitely due to just stress, and that is not something that has ever affected me before. So yeah, like when I look back now, I'm like, man, I was so stressed, and just because you were managing all these different expectations that shouldn't exist in hospitality to begin with, right? So
yeah. I think, I guess I obviously work in hospitality as well, with regards to, I work for like an outdoor venture company. So it's hospitality in the sense of like recreational, but so I never really had an insight into it, but it's interesting where I honestly think hospitality and maybe sales are two industries where like they have such a far reach in other industries. Like you could work in, even like name a random, like I used to do engineering, like hospitality experience could help you in engineering, I believe, because of like the dealing with people. Like I know it's totally different scenarios, but ultimately it's the same outcome.
And this has famously been discussed by many like entrepreneurs and hospitality like professionals. And I think Anthony Bourdain said it most famously, is like, everyone should be forced to work in hospitality for 1 year in their life, because it teaches all the soft skills that you don't learn in other environments. It teaches empathy, it teaches compassion, it teaches problem solving at a level that, on such a high level, but you don't need, high level training to deal with it. Like, and they've done studies on the whole stress factor, like being a busy in hospitality, like the problem solving, the acting, quickly, basically the acuity that's needed to like just respond to something, and you need to have a solution right away. Like there's no time to you can't have discussions. You can't go have a round table meeting about what table 5 needs in the next 2 minutes. You just got to make a decision on the spot. Like it teaches so many critical soft skills. But yeah, the world would just be a nicer place if everybody worked in a restaurant at least once in their life for a year. Yeah.
What do you think is the most common trait amongst people in all the different industries that you worked? Like, but within hospitality, what do you think is like the most like common thing that you notice between them with people?
well, the ones that do well in it's the most common it definitely is empathy, or at least at the bare minimum sympathy. But I think it just, people who do well in it's because in hospitality, if you're going to do it well, you have to be able to put yourself in the guest's shoes. Like that's literally how the business model should be derived. It's just like, okay, I am a guest in my business. What am I looking for? How am I going to be served? How am I going to have a great experience? So you're always thinking from the guest perspective, whereas other industries, you generally don't have to do that. You're thinking, how do I make somebody see that this product is the best, or that this process, is, or if you're an architect, like you're designing something for someone, but at the end of the day, your skill set is, I'm going to present what I think is the best ideation for this project. You're not actually, a little bit you're asking, what do they want in this project? But then I was hired to show them what they want, right? Whereas hospitality is the exact opposite. It's like every moment is, okay, if I'm this guest, what am I looking for next? Because the best people in hospitality are the ones that are thinking ahead and put the guest's needs in their forefront, so that at the end of the day, the guest never had to ask for anything, but got the experience that they were expecting without actually having to ask for it.
So it kind of sounds like maybe the thing you learn most is managing and anticipating people's expectations.
Anticipating expectations, anticipating needs, anticipating everything, really.
Yeah.
And when people are good at that, and I don't necessarily think that's something that can be like, you can try to teach it, but from my years and years of management experience, I have definitely found that there are people that get it and there are people that don't. And the people that don't, you could give them an A to Z manual on it and they'll never get it. Like it's a personality trait. There's definitely, and there's different levels in that personality trait, but there are 100% people that understand it and are good at it. And like, then there's just people like, and I'm sure you've met people in life who, I worked in a restaurant for like 3 days. I could never do it. Like I lasted 3 days. This is not for me. Right. So.
Yeah. And is there anything that like surprised you about people like working in hospitality? Like just the stuff that surprises me, honestly, like, yeah, sometimes I do get surprised by, questions and stuff that I get asked. Was there anything that like
from workers or from guests?
I guess both.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, that's the whole spectrum of humanity, like, especially living like you and I living in, and majority of my life, I've lived in tourist towns, like, places that are designed for tourism. And again, that's a whole other side topic too. Like when I've worked in the cities and you work in environments where like the clientele might be regulars that come, often, it's a completely different dynamic. But in regards to like being surprised, maybe when I was younger, things surprised me. Nowadays, like, you could ask me the most inane thing and I wouldn't be surprised, just because I have seen a lot of that, and nothing surprises me. And like, I think I'm really good at like not showing complete, not disdain, but just, but ironically, in personal relationships, like I'm famous for my eye roll. Like I could just kill people with my eye roll, but I don't do it in public. It's just a private thing.
I've never seen it.
No, I know you haven't. So.
Probably you're doing it behind my back. Fucking hell.
So, but yeah, no, yeah, all my years of management experience now as well, just, there was definitely a shift. And I don't know if this really ties into the question too much, but like, with that same shift that kind of came in my outlook, for like more of a stoic outlook, it also affected how I viewed my management role. So where it used to be like super hyper guest focused. But as I kind of became more aware of the dynamics of managing people, I definitely shifted into, and I'm sure most of the stuff you've read on management, it ties into actually take care of the people you're guiding, like your workers, your coworkers, your peers, your as a manager, if you're overseeing a team of 20 to 300 people, whatever, take care of them, then put them out into the work world and they'll make the guest experience amazing. Whereas I think earlier in my career, it was always like, just be strict, be hard on the staff if they're not giving the guests their experience, not understanding that, no, you take care of this first and that'll take care of that, instead of the backwards area. Like, oh, just guest focused, but not being employee focused. It's a backwards way to do it, because you're not empowering the people around you to go out and give the best experience. As soon as I really basically got rid of my ego around that, as soon as I physical shift. And this actually took place when I opened the brew pub here in Banff. Like that's the first, because I'd already had manager jobs before that, and I'd been learning, and I could see where I progressed, and I could see I was getting better. But literally at the brew pub was the first time when I had it, because it was a fresh slate. It was a brand new build, brand new team that I got to hire. And I had a moment where I'm like, I'm just going to like focus on the staff, and I'll empower them to give the best experience. And that was a big shift.
And was that something that you just innately felt like you were going to do that? Or did you, because I was going to ask you when you were chatting there, do you think that's like also kind of like a cultural shift? No, cultural shift, sorry. Like shift of the times, like, just like over the decade or plus that you've been in it, like was that, because I would assume that, I even noticed it with my dad, right? So when I was home there, like I would say my dad, the way he ran the business was very much like, I don't want this to sound as negative as it may come out. Like, I don't think there was too much focus on like the employees and like, it was more just like the product, make sure the product's right. I didn't really focus on the employees. But anyway, when I went back and I went to the factory, because I know a bunch of guys just to say hi, I was really surprised with like a bunch of stuff that they'd done they built them like a football pitch, not a full size one, but like a football pitch so they could play football at lunch. And I was like, it was way different than when I'd worked there 10 years ago, and it was a lot more progressive. And I was like, I wonder if that's just because the times have changed where there is more of a focus.
Well, there's something more focus on. I think there's more awareness that let's say that whole style I just talked about, there's more awareness that is, you'll get more productivity out that way. And I think the impetus for me when it changed for me was a little bit of like, even at that time, I was always like learning, reading management books, management styles. I had probably picked up on that, like as the undercurrent of a lot of the books I'd been reading and stuff as well. But it was probably a maturity thing as well. Just realizing that, and when I work with, like I've got two really good friends who live up in Jasper, and they are running a new business up there, and they're both very young, and they worked for me in Jasper when I was at that hotel, and I've watched them, like, cause they approach me all the time with questions about, running their business, and I can see their eagerness, which I had at their age as well, where they feel like they need to be Superman or Superwoman. They need to know everything, what's going on, and have their fingers on everything. And, they're so worried that like on their days off, they're checking in on everything. I was like, well, and my advice is to them since day one has been, look, when you can not go to work for a day, especially in hospitality, and not worry, like know that your team is taking care of everything, that's when you've become a good manager. Whereas, I think early on in manager careers, a lot of people are like, I have to be the linchpin. Like if I'm not there, it doesn't go well. That means that I'm needed. As soon as you get rid of that, it's very egotistical. As soon as you realize it, no, take yourself out of the situation. And if everything runs really well, you've actually done your job correctly. Whereas a lot of younger in that career, and I think this would apply to most industries, like, well, no, I have to be there. Like I have to be seen as the centrifugal force that makes this place go, right?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. That book I was reading that you actually bought me, Turn This Ship Around. So it's all about like this guy who becomes the commander of like a US nuclear submarine, and his philosophy and how he becomes like, goes from like the worst submarine to the best. But he was saying that pre his philosophy and idea, the commanders of the past were judged on how well they'd done after they left, because when they left and everything just fucking went to absolute shit, they'd be like, well, how good was he, because he was the thing and the person that and he was like, how crazy is that? Like surely as the like the nuclear submarine force of the United States, we want to be like a system, as doesn't matter if one person's taking out the systems.
Yeah, well, there's always that fear, the individual fear to like, I don't want to be replaceable. But as soon as you realize it, like if I make myself replaceable, I've done the best job possible.
Yeah.
And that's a very hard thing to fully accept, But
also for your friends up in Jasper, like it allows them the flexibility to do other stuff. Think bigger picture. Yeah. Expand, grow.
Yeah. You can look at any business that has exploded or had like this burst of like, let's say even viralness in whatever, right? It's usually because whoever's running it has come to that realization and then empowers everybody, and then it just becomes organic and just spreads like a wildfire.
Yeah.
No pun intended with Jasper, but
well, I think also in that book it was interesting because he was talking about, so another of his philosophies was like pushing the decision making authority, if that's the right way of putting it, down to the lowest people he could. Not like low as, like to the people closest to the effect that it would have.
The affected area, for sure.
Because he was like, a byproduct of that is like those people then it increases their knowledge and skill and critical thinking, because they need to think about like how he would think.
Yeah.
So instead of him just telling them what to do and them not educating themselves, they'll be like, cool, he's told me what to do, I'll just do it. They would have to be like, right, okay, what would he do? So therefore, like it meant that a lot of his lower, I'll just use the word staff, but I guess it'd be like commanders and stuff. His lower staff had a much higher rate of career progression because they had been taught to think like a commander.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm literally living that right now with the company I work for. Like the owner of the company, that is exactly what they're doing. There's like the couple that owns the company. They are empowering. I mean, there's not much of a hierarchy, but they're empowering all levels to think for themselves, and because it's transportation, it's hospitality. There's moments where you need to make a decision at that moment. You can't go up the chain, so to speak, and and all the employees feel that empowerment, and like it's why the culture is so good in the company I work for. And,
it's also probably why you enjoy the job more, because you're engaged in it. You feel like the things. I mean, I get it in my job as well. Like when I feel like if I make a suggestion and it's actually action, you're more engaged because you're like, oh sweet, like I actually have a
you don't just feel like you're a cog, just spinning a wheel that you don't necessarily want to be a part of, right?
Yeah. So coming back to all the different, so you've obviously done hospitality, transportation, and no doubt there's a bunch of stuff in there as well. Do you so I think a lot of people in life, they get their sense of identity from their work. I was an engineer, or I'm not now, but I am an engineer. I am a this, I am a that. Like with moving between industries so much, did you notice that? I guess this is a two-part question, because also I guess with that as well is there's identity and then there's purpose. So a lot of people are like, I am an engineer and I'm going to, my career is to be like project manager or engineer in 10 years time. Like with moving around so much, like with regards to like your identity and like the purpose, did you like struggle with that at all, or were you comfortable kind of just being like?
Yeah, that again, good question. This is actually one that me and my partner Kasha talk about all the time. Because she struggles with that. She struggles like, well, what is my purpose? I enjoy what I do. Because she's also in tourism as well. For me personally, even as I get on in years,
you're not that old.
Just in regards to like the purpose question is a big one, because I live so much in the moment that there are definitely moments where I reflect and I'm like, oh, I really don't have a purpose. Like, what is my long-term goal? But I'm also, and maybe it's a fault. Like I don't actually want long-term goals. Like I'm very happy to live in the moment and just just have a good environment, good people around me, be good to others, and just enjoy my day to day. There might be some nihilistic tendencies in my thought process as well, because I, not in a morbid way, but I really don't care about a lot. But I do that. I don't know if it's a defense mechanism, or I've just learned that that's the way to approach life. And I find it makes me super approachable. It makes me very open to meeting new people. I think that's something you and I could speak on. Like obviously this is where I lived for the summer with the job, and, never met you before. And like from day one, there was instant connection, but that's because I was open to it, And to be fair, like I look at my friend group, like especially the ones that didn't work hospitality, like guys in their early to late 40s, like 90% of them are not open to ever meeting somebody new. Like they don't want anything new in their life, and for me, it's purposely and with intent to be very open to, like, I love meeting new people. I want to meet new people. That for me is a purpose.
Daz Cass's one complaint about me. Well, actually, it won't be her one complaint about me, but it's one of the complaints that she has is that when I'm drunk, I'm like constantly I feed off new energy.
Yeah.
Like I'm constantly wanting to talk to new people. So she'll be like, we'll be at the pub and you'll fuck off. And like the last time I did it, I fucked off to talk to this group of like 3 gay guys.
Yeah.
So it's not even like I'm fucking off to like try and hit on girls. Like it's just like, she was like, you need to stop leaving me.
Yeah.
Cause I get a buzz off of like I love new.
Yeah. I think you and I are very similar like that. Like I don't go out or drink as much as I used to, and not in an antisocial way. Just it's funny. But like randomly, because I still travel quite a bit, and like Kasha would say the same thing. It's like, well, I have nights out, and like I've made like 20 new friends.
Yeah.
Like, so I might disappear for a while and just be like, oh, well, we got distracted. We went here and there, and like, that's a great way to be. I think, and just.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but my sister Sophie said the same thing. She was like, you could come down. I was like, I'd gone down to London like a decade ago when she first moved there, and she was like, we were in the pub, and you'd made friends with like everyone in the pub. But I think I definitely like, I love the newness of stuff. And I guess that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier in the conversation about like that whole 12-year same thing day in, day out. Like,
yeah, exactly. That scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But it's also led to this point in my life where like I don't have a ton. Well, see, I want to be careful how I say this, because some people would say, well, you have nothing to show for your whole life,
Yeah.
But I literally never, that doesn't cross my mind at all. But that scares Kasha. Like she actually has those kinds of thoughts. Well, because she's a little younger than me, but she has moments of like, I have nothing to show for this 20 plus years of adult existence. I'm like, you have a million things to show. You have more friends than most people make in 15 lifetimes. You have the utmost respect from your closest group, because you are just such a lovely, and I feel like I'm in the same boat. If I die tomorrow, I would have absolutely no regrets about how I lived my life.
I guess it's also like, but like, and I say this as someone who does do this. So, but like, who are you trying to show? That's the, you know what I mean? Like, what's it matter if, now there are people in my life who I do care about, that I want to see me like doing, being a good person and whatnot. But, if it's that, I think that's the whole, it's not FOMO, it's like fear of, like like fear of others' opinions or something like that.
Yeah, but.
Not that that's what Cash is doing, but I guess it's
No, but this is a lot of the core of our discussions, as we've grown in our relationship as well, is like, she's always worried about what other people think of her. And like, I've never had that. And that is a character trait I've had since I was super, super little. But I know, like we talked about, what do you get from your parents? Or like, I see that in my dad all the time. Like my dad makes friends with anybody, but he's also very quiet, very introverted. He's had some stuff in his past. He's a recovered alcoholic, but at the same time too, like my dad is very, very quiet. And then sometimes he'll just say things you're like, man, this guy like does not give a fuck what people think, but not in a bad way. Just like, it never crosses his mind. When he wants to do something, he'll do it. And he's always good intentioned, but like, and I'm the exact same way. I never make a decision based on what other people will think of it. Like, it doesn't cross my mind ever. And like, Kasha is amazed at that. She's always like, I don't understand how you don't even think about it. I'm like, why would you waste your time on that? And I'm, we're talking about like everyday decisions, like this or that, or like, where do you want to go, or what do you want to do? Like, and big life decisions as well. Like I'm not afraid to make change, and I'm not worried what people would think if I do this or do that. Like all these career changes and all these moves I've done and the super nomadic lifestyle I've had, I never once made a decision and thought, oh, well, what will they think of this, or who will like it? But I don't know, is that a fault? Like sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I should worry about what my parents think of this or what. Like, obviously I think, what will Kasha think of this? But we've also dragged each other around the world for each other,
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's a fault.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I fall between the lines both sometimes. Like I have to be conscious of like reminding myself that it doesn't matter what other people think. And sometimes I can honestly say sometimes I don't care, and then I will catch myself like caring way too much. And that's what I need to be like conscious about.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe I'm a little bit nihilistic in the same sense as you sometimes, because I'm like, I can't remember who, but there was like a famous, writer or poet or something, like Alan something, that wrote about like how in 100 years time, like if it, like, I mean, it's a lot more poetic and nicer than this, but effectively the summary of it was like in 100 years time, everyone that you think about just now and care about their opinion, they'll all be dead and their kids will be dead and there won't even be anyone that will remember who you are. And I know that's nihilistic, but sometimes I will say that to myself, and then it gives, because it's a positive reinforcer, because then I'm like, oh, sweet, right, well, I'm just going to do what I want.
Yeah, I think there's positivity in being nihilistic and morose. Like, I would never want to get to the level of a Dostoevsky, who just absolutely had no hope for humanity whatsoever.
Yeah, no, that guy.
But also just understanding, what will it matter in 100 years? And I think if you have that mentality as well, and again, we won't get into the nuances of religion. If you're worried about what happens after you die, it affects how you live today.
Yeah,
and I loathe that kind of a mindset. I think that's a very dangerous, toxic mindset. We have one life.
Yeah.
Make the best of it, and be good to others. And I mean, it sounds so simple, and to me, it should be that simple, but there's just so many layers but I'm also aware of all those layers, but I forget. I think that's a big issue, is when we can sit here and, not to sound pompous, but we're self-aware. We've read all this. We understand, we try to understand how humanity is, why are we at this point, and why are societies at this point? Like, from a historical aspect, how did it get to this point? And I think I have a pretty good grasp of that. But you got to be careful when you go into the world and realize that, not everybody has that. And if you assume that they do, it's going to make you very sad. And when you look at the people around you, or it'll make you arrogant, and that's not ever a way to be either, right? So,
you mean in the sense of like thinking that not necessarily everything, but the kind of best.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the way to word this correctly. Like, just being someone who studies like everything, like, because I've always had that curiosity. Why are we the way we are?
Yeah.
Right. From everything, from cultural to societal to even just physically, like evolutionary stuff. Why are we the way we are? And like understanding that, and then just looking out at the world and realize that 99% of the world doesn't know and doesn't care about this kind of stuff. They're just in their little moment of reactionary to the current thing. And I mean, that's how the world exists.
I mean, that's how I lived like that until like I had a moment, not a moment, but I had I had a moment. So like when I was 23 and I was living a lifestyle that, looking back, and it was not surprising in any way that I then had like what I had, which was like a couple of years of like panic attacks and blah, blah, blah. So all self-inflicted. But anyway, that forced me. Before that, I was exactly what you were saying there. And not that I'm some fucking high mighty person now, but I was just like living I just was not aware of any of that. I was not aware of how people like interact in the world and all this stuff. And, I had this experience of like crippling mental, I don't want to say health because it's such a buzzword, but just like crippling mental issues.
Yeah.
And that forced me. So what it forced me to do was I need to understand how my own brain works so that I can get out of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once I did that and got out of that, doing it for my selfish reasons of like, I'm physically trying to make me healthier again. Ever since then, that completely changed the way that sparked my like curiosity with like, how do people work? Like, why does your brain do certain things?
So I had all back down to like, for some whatever reason, I had that from a super young age. And I think that's the main difference here, is like, I literally thought like that when I was like 12, 13, like and I don't know if it's a maturity thing. I don't even know where it came from, because my parents weren't super worldly. But from a very, very young age, I had those identity crises. I don't know, like just,
I mean, that's kind of what I had.
But I had it when I was like 12, 13.
Yeah.
And the way it manifested was, at that, like, 13 to 17, 18, I was already like diving deep into humanity's origins and like the evolution of societies. Like, I was reading like university level books on critical thinking, and I got really into like the evolution of languages and the migrationary paths that humanity followed. And then I read this crazy, like literally, like I remember like the jacket was like, this is a level 4, like PhD level, and I'm like 14 when I'm reading this. Like, I would read one page and this is pre-internet time, I would have to read one page and like I couldn't understand half of what was on that page, but I forced myself to just go word by word, and I eventually figured out the language a little bit. But, I was like 13, 14 doing this. And then I'm going to school, hanging out with these kids who are just so reactionary to their emotions of the day. But I can recall back then looking at them and being like, not feeling superior, definitely not, but definitely being like, I am not on the same level. Like I've already, for whatever better term, evolved,
Matured,
I guess. But it's just, but I mean, there's like 50-year-olds who haven't gotten to that level either, right? So, but it was a weird thing to be in like high school with that kind of just level of like looking around and really like, oh, Jerry's like that because Jerry grew up this way and this is his family's cultural background. And I know this culture likes to do this. And like, I can see it manifesting in how he reacts when somebody does this or something, like that's how I was thinking back then, so that just parlays into like in grade 11 when I'm just like, I'm so fucking bored. Literally, I'm so fucking bored. I need people around me that will maybe show me some. And that's why I was like, I'm just going to live on the streets for 2 months and I need to know what it's like. And for me, it was kind of a social experiment. I was like, I need to know why they're on the street. Like, I remember that was a lot of my questioning. I need to know why they're here. Like, what actually propelled them to be on the streets and homeless?
And what was the answer? Was it mostly like, it
was a much wider range of reasons than I would have expected. Like, even now when you look at people when they see drug addicts, it's always like, oh, that just must be because of this. Whereas I definitely have the background now to know that, well, it could be one of like 100 things.
Have you ever read the book or heard of the book by Gabor Mate called The Myth of Normal?
Well, I know Gabor Mate pretty well. I've read some of his stuff. I don't know if I've read The Myth of Normal, though.
Myth of Normal is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really big book, but one of the takeaways from it is the fact that, like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like, you look at people on the street and you're like, oh, they chose that life.
Yeah.
And then it pretty much, again, super oversimplifying it, but it's like, nah, like the issues that happened to them as a child, like directed them onto this path, which is like, if the average person was to have had that experience, they would be there.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks like, I wouldn't be a drug addict, but it's like, if you had had that experience, you would be exactly where they are.
Yeah. And I do have moments of like, I'll look at somebody in that situation and like, instead of me saying, oh, this is what got them to that situation, I will actually be like, I'm only 2 things happening to me to be like,
yeah.
That's how I see it.
I mean, I was the same, like when I kind of had that 2 years of like, no, I'm generally I'm not like over exaggerating here. Like if I had been put in a mental home, like it wouldn't have, it would not have surprised me. Like in hindsight, because I was my brain was like, it was like having Tourette's in my mind. Like I had no control over like my thoughts. Like it was madness. And but I guess what I'm getting at there is like, I never thought that I would be like that. Like I remember, had a friend who went to school and his sister got sectioned, and I remember when that happened, everyone was like, fucking hell, that's crazy. But I remember like now I'm like, would not have surprised me if that happened to me at the time. But yeah, it's what you're saying. Like you're only like a couple of doors away from
and also the time and space. Like I mentioned, like, can you imagine if I had a 16-year-old now, like as a father, and they did what I did when I was 16? There's no way I could do that. It's cool. Like I would just be, no, you need to, but
I will air tag you.
Nah, but I wouldn't.
No, I know. I'm only joking, but
yeah, man.
I mean, I just don't think I would do it. I think I just couldn't do that as a parent. As much as I want to be open-minded and let them make the mistakes, I think spending 2 months in a fucking city, I'd be like, nah, you're...
Well, and it's probably a little more dangerous and like...
Yeah. But so you were talking about like how Kasha struggles a little bit with like purpose. Do you think, with regards to meaning in life, do you think that is something that you discover, or do you think it's something that you build through the way you live your life?
Right. Well, I don't necessarily think there is a meaning to life, and because I still think at the end of the day we're biological creatures.
So sorry, I guess I mean like, and to cut you off there, like if someone was looking for meaning in their life, so no,
okay, I'm not
purpose, talking like bigger picture as like us as humans. I'm talking about like Kasha and me. So I'm asking this question because I was thinking about it. Like I'm always fucking thinking about it, but like, you want to feel that you have a purpose / meaning in life. And like, I'm kind of like right now, I'm like, fucking, is it going to slap me in the face one day? Or do I need to go out and live my life and my meaning will come as a consequence of the actions that I'm taking?
Well, I don't think I'm the person to ask. Yeah. So, because I'm, like I've got almost 20 years on, I still have those questions.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that is the answer.
But maybe it's the way, but I definitely think maybe I deal with it differently. And I definitely see that when I have my conversations with Kasha, because not that I get scared about it, but I just like, okay. Like I said, I do have moments of like, oh, what is my purpose? What if,
so I think everyone wants to feel like they have a point of being here.
Well, for sure. But for me, it's in my day to day. It's like making my guests happy on the bus, or making my roommate happy when I get home. Or for me, there's a lot of just trying to make my partner and this is the thing, we have a lot of discussion about this, because relationships are not healthy when you think you can make your partner happy. It's definitely, we do not subscribe to that at all.
I make cats happy every day, so I don't know what you're talking about.
But also I have a partner who's also done some very intensive life coach training. Okay. She's also done a lot of holistic stuff, and so we have very interesting conversations. And and a lot of the time I'll be like, "Stop coaching me." Right? But
how's she like? Yeah, it's quite funny.
Yeah, but she's very analytical. And this this ties into what we were talking about earlier. So Kasha will also have moments of like, she'll get frustrated when like her mom will not want to explore some self-awareness aspect, or like will not want to like talk about this. And like Kasha will forget that she's trained herself on stuff like this, like how to coach people, or how to be in a conversation that can guide towards a certain thing. And when people don't align with it, it frustrates her, because I think she just has this assumption that, well, everybody should be like this. And it's like, well, no. And I'll point that out to her, and she's like, yeah, you're right. I know, I can't just assume that not everybody wants to grow. Not everybody wants to become self-aware. Not everybody wants to learn, and at all ages and all mindsets, and like super rich, successful people with like the monetary gains. And this might be the most like insecure, naive, scared person that but they're financially successful, and they have this and that. And opposite, there's people that are just super content and like have everything figured out, but can't scrape two nickels together. And I think there's just so much stuff that interweaves and intercrosses and in it, or just rambling. I'm rambling now. See, just the thing is, but that's how my mind works too.
Yeah.
Like I just start tangent after tangent after tangent, but I like to grab those tangents and I'll run with them sometimes. I think that's where my creative side comes out. Like, so when I write poetry and stuff, and that's a bit of a release to calm down the.
And have you always like had a creative outlet? That's
always. I've written poetry since like probably around the same time where I figured out I'm going to start learning, like 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
Like I have notebooks from when I was like 13, 14.
So what do you enjoy? Like, I don't do poetry. So like, what is it that you like? What is it you enjoy about it? I'm just asking.
Yeah, no.
I guess it's like asking someone why they enjoy tennis. They just enjoy the
sport. No.
tennis.
It's like there's definitely a mental exercise to it. And it's evolved like in regards to how I write my poetry. Like a lot of it used to be, and it's still to this day, I'm a very vivid dreamer. I dream very intensely.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
And I remember my dreams very well when I wake up. Used to be I'd wake up and write a poem about the dream I just had. Like I would just metaphorize it into a poem, like the dream. Nowadays it's a little more reflective style of poetry, I think, where basically what I do is I sit down, and like I told Jack yesterday, is like, I'll just think of either something that happened in the day, or an incident, or even a physical item that's, drawn my attention, and I'll just write a one line about that. And then I'll just kind of meditate on that. And then I can just spew out a creative process around that. That's kind of how it works nowadays. But I've also done like a little bit of essay writing, a little bit of, a lot of self-journaling. I don't journal as much like, the classic diary style. I used to do that a lot more. Now it's predominantly like I'll just basically metastasize day-to-day experience into poems. And I don't know if that's how I just release whatever my anxieties or my
so it's kind of meditative.
Yeah, it is a bit meditative too. So
like when I go and do if I go a run, it's probably a similar thing. It's like I'm not expressing creatively, but it's probably like a meditative thing.
Yeah, but it's definitely a skill I have. Like I'm very, and I guess maybe in another lifetime I would have been a rapper. I don't know. But, but like, for example, in our friend group, like even like Kasha, like it's somebody's birthday or we're going to some kind of anniversary dinner or something, like of friends of ours, she'll always give me the blank card and say, write a poem. And I'll just rip off a poem and usually they're pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Like I'm better at it now, but like I started journaling probably like a decade ago, 9 years ago, when I started traveling. And when I first started traveling, like the entries were so like benign, no, not benign, bland. Like,
just like
I would literally be like, I went to a temple and met a guy called GM, and that would be it, actually. Because I was so insecure about like, but what happens if someone reads it? And
So can I interject real quick? Because one of the most, one of the biggest catalysts I had in my time was my early years in Jasper. Like this was like mid to late 90s. Had some really good roommates at the time. We were actually friends from Edmonton. This is a long story short, but we all ended up in Jasper and we were all living together. And, every now and then I would show my one friend some of the stuff I was writing, because I used to never show anybody. But he was really close with him, and he's just a great guy. And randomly one night, I think I was just writing a book, and I'm one of those people, I'll open a book. I don't always write in the order of the pages. Like I'll just write halfway down the book and then I'll go back and sometimes I forget to put dates on it, but I kind of like the way I do that because it makes me think about when did this happen. And anyways, long story short, I was going through my book and I opened to a random page and my roommate had written in there, "Stop writing like you're expecting someone to read this." And it was very simple, but it totally changed, like just to be even more open and to just like, because there were times when I would write with the expectation, oh, well, if I could get this published, or not even that sense, just like I would write like somebody's reading it. And as soon as I got rid of that filter, it became even more explorative and more creative, for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. Like I mean, it's called a journal. I mean, effectively it's a diary. And so like no one's read them ever. Like no one's ever read any of the things I've written, but it's funny how I still thought what you were saying. Like I was like, I mean, it wasn't publishing, but I was like, yeah, but what happens if someone reads it? And then once I kind of got over that, I think I was also just a young, insecure guy of like not wanting to express myself and someone reading it. But yeah, like it was funny how like over the 9 years it's gone from like met a guy called JM at a temple, came home, to now I'm like, me and JM had a lovely conversation about and it made me think about the future and and just I think being more comfortable, like being more expressive. Expressive, is that word? Yeah. And I mean being expressive in something that in theory no one will ever see unless I fucking die. And my mum and dad were like, I wonder what he was thinking about for the last 9 years.
I have a weird fantasy of like, and I've told Kasha this, and she's like, okay, well, I'll see what I can do. I said, if I die before you and die like, soon, just get all my stuff out there and maybe I'll become famous after I'm dead.
I mean, that's what happens to a lot of
but I've said that to friends before, joking, and they're like, well, why don't you just put it out now? Like at the end of the day. So I do actually have like some stuff out there. And I think actually this winter we were talking, I think I might actually just focus on that with my downtime this winter.
I mean, that's what I was thinking. That's what I'm kind of doing with this now. Like, we're coming to the end of this season, and winter for us is, there's always stuff to do. Like, it allows me more downtime in the sense of like my time off. Like during summer, I'm constantly like, it's fucking this happening or that happening. Whereas summer, I'm like reliably when I'm off. And yeah, I was definitely looking to focus that time on this. Because I never, having been someone who wasn't creative, like at all. Not as in I wasn't creative, but like I never had a creative outlet until literally this last couple of years where I've now been doing this podcast thing. I love it. Like I enjoy it. Like it's definitely it fills a hole that I didn't realize I had. I think I realized I had something, but I guess I was constantly like, well, to be honest, I was just filling it with being social and drinking. I would just go out and be social.
But I think that's the majority of how people, and whether it's, again, the way too often used the whole trauma thing. Oh, it's childhood trauma manifesting itself. I mean, that is so overused. And at the end of the day, like I really do think people need to just boil it down to just look, humans are humans. There's definitely things that happen. If this happens, this is maybe manifested later on in life. But like again, this is another topic, but just because
podcast number 3.
Yeah, for sure. Because I've had this discussion with very close friends as well. And like I touched a bit on my father, who was, recovered alcoholic, but he's diagnosed manic depressive and was on medication for a majority of his life. And in his 60s, he decided to take himself off of it.
Oh, wow.
And we've had some very personal conversations where he's like, I should have taken myself off of these so long ago. He's like, I realized I lived 40 years in a fog. Right.
Yeah.
So when I'm surrounded by people who are overdiagnosed, overmedicated, like I have very strong opinions about that. But I also, is it my place to be like, this is how I think about this? And like, and like I definitely see some of those tendencies in my behavior, like my mental state. But I think because I'm aware of it, I can catch myself before I go down too much of a spiral, let's say with depressiveness or et cetera, or even manic episodes where I'm like super high. Like I know I'm in it, so I can manage it better and what have you.
So I was going to ask you, like, do you think people truly change in life, or do you think they get a better understanding of who they are and just how to manage it?
I think it could be a combination. I think there's no, I don't think there's a linear line with that. I think it's two lines that could maybe interweave. Some people, maybe it never meets up, and others definitely just crossing all the time. I think, again, nothing is, even like you look at all things going on in the world right now, everybody's trying to make things black and white, left and right, black and white, left and right. Like that's just not how things exist. Like there's just so many layers of everything.
Yeah.
And, even we talked about like, how we evolved biologically and how we evolved societally. Like you have to intermesh all those. Like just think about that. That's like, you're just mashing just hundreds of variables together. So what's the outcome going to be for each individual person?
Yeah.
Those 100 variables could be the same for two different people, but they're going to have different outcomes when you mix them all together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the whole Jack's consciousness thing about inputs and outputs yesterday. I found that quite interesting. So,
yeah. And you were talking a minute ago about like boiling stuff down. Yeah. Do you, like, as you've got older, not old, but older, like what have you, like, have you looked to make your life more simple, like whittled down? They're like, this is fucking noise, this is bullshit, this is
definitely, yeah.
Would you like, what are the kind of like, is there anything that's like super obvious that you're like, now I'm just like, fuck this off? I guess it's probably like, we were kind of chatting at the beginning about people and negativity and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of that. Is like I just will not make time for people that are negative and the level of annoyance it has to me is definitely amplified as I get older. But I also will not let that manifest itself in me into like extreme reactions. Because like I said, Stoicism for me is a big way to be. Not that but I also don't ever want to be super ideological in regards to anything, philosophy, religion, faith, like spirituality, whatever. I can say, I like the idea of Stoicism, but I'm not going to sit here and pound it onto the table like the world needs to be stoic.
What do you like about it?
Well, it's because the core tenet of it is just all you can do is control how you react. Like you are in control of yourself, and that is it. That is it. That is all you're in control of. Everything around you is a non-starter until you learn to just control how you react to anything, because that's all you can control. You cannot, and so many people in this world are just trying to control things outside of them. Yeah. But yeah. And then what else? Yeah. I mean, I have a million things that we could, that I want, but at the end of the day, I mean, what was the core thing we're trying to like really dissect today, right? Like it was more about hospitality and just.
Yeah, I guess you're like, well, I was actually more just like curious with obviously like how you've lived your life, just because I see mine kind of like shadowing it almost. And I think this is something that I think of again. So it's a question to you, like as you get older, do you like, how is your perspective of time changed? Do you feel like it's, do you feel more urgent in wanting to do stuff, or do you feel more patient? Because I think I struggle with like, I'm only 32, but I'm already like, fucking hell, like I need to like, I feel like I'm running out of time to do stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you get older, you're like, everything's chill, I'm just going to fucking slow down.
I think I've always kind of lived at the same pace in regards to time and like, but because, even as I got older, I'm still very like nomadic in some sense. I'm still willing to make drastic changes in physical location. So yeah, in regards to, I don't ever, and again, I don't know if this is good or bad. I don't really think my ideas around urgency or like has changed that much. I'd say actually when I was younger, I was probably more like, okay, this needs to happen now. This. As I get older, I wouldn't even say it's patience. It's just, I think just more, again, the Stoicism thing. I'm just able to understand, like, I'm just going to react to things as they come. But I'm also, and we didn't touch too much on this, but in regards to my career and like all the different jobs I've had, and most of my close peer group and like Kasha will tell you, like, if I get an idea and I want to do something, I do it. Like, I am definitely somebody who, like, if I absolutely think something is worth doing, I just do it. Like, and I don't worry about, well, can I do it? I'll just do it. You know, like, that's definitely one of my things that I'm most proud of, is like pretty much everything I've ever said, oh, I want to do this, or I want to try this, or I think this is a good idea, I've gone ahead and done it. Like, I've never, you know, I might have failed at a few things, but I can definitely say I've never not attempted. And then I think maybe the only struggle I'll ever have, maybe later on, if I reflect, is did I choose the right things to do? Right.
Yeah. I guess this is kind of like a 2-part question, but on that, like, how do you find, you already kind of mentioned about, like, I guess you were hinting there just about like being comfortable with being present and taking things as they are. Like, how do you balance being present with also like making sure that you're not missing out on like planning stuff that you want to do?
Yeah.
And do you think, like, follow up to that, do you think you can be content and ambitious at the same time, or do you think they're kind of like, you can kind of have one or the other? Because I feel like that, where I'm like, and I feel like the ambition of wanting to do more, not even like just in any aspect of life, whether it's travel more, you know, have more experiences, like, kind of like sometimes I feel like it stops me from being content, because I'm like, yeah, but I want to do the next thing.
But that just ties into like a lot of philosophies of like, what is happiness, or is the end goal happiness, right? Because I think personally, and again, this is one that Kash and I talk about a lot of the time, is like, I don't think the end goal or like a meaning in life is to be happy.
No.
I think that's a very dangerous thing as well. That's whole like focus on like, well, you need to be happy, or contentment might be similar, right? Like, well, no, contentment's a little bit different, because contentment is like if you just focus inwardly, and you're like, okay, I'm happy with the place. I'm content with the place I'm at or what I'm doing. But you could be content as you're being ambitious, or you could be content in just like being settled, right? So again, it's the mixing of the two. Is, I think you can be ambitious and content at the same time. I don't think they have to be siloed. And I think a lot of unhappiness, regardless of if you're trying to be happy or not, is when you do start to silo things because you think they have to be siloed. But I think if you look at a lot of like successful people in different avenues or whatever have you, I've definitely noticed that it's because they're able to just mingle things together and not overthink or overanalyze. Like, things happen and they just go with it. And yeah, I always find like when you read stuff on like really successful people in all genres, it always seems like they say, well, I just stopped caring and it just happened. Yeah, so just definitely, you know, the whole paralysis by analysis thing.
Oh, gotcha. I also find that like sometimes you hear about stories of like, and I know people that this has happened to, where like, I think in the past, and I'm trying to be this person less of like plan, like, you know, make sure you're in the right place to do the right thing. And the amount of times I have friends or just hear about people or read about people who they just went with the flow, and then they fucking end up meeting this other person that hooked them up with this other person, and then they got the dream job. And it's like, it's kind of at times infuriating, because you're like, yeah, but I'm fucking trying my hardest to plan all this stuff, and this person.
Yeah, but, or does it come down to manifestation? Because then you'll also read like, oh, you just have to manifest it. And eventually, you know,
I guess it's also, if you're living, not to make this sound too wanky, but if you're living like your true life, then the opportunities will present themselves, because people will see, you know, you're doing that, as opposed to forcing the hand, you know?
Yeah, and just being,
it's not that you're in the right place in the right time. You're doing what you should be doing, and the world in a voodoo way is presenting you with like the people and the opportunities that you want, because you're living your true self.
Yeah, well, if it works out, it works out, right?
Yeah.
But there's also, 8+ billion of us, so we can all have that mentality, and it's great. I think the world would be a great place, but I don't think it would happen for all 8 billion of us as much as that amazingness would be. But so where's the factor that separates? Is it just luck? Is it, what?
Yeah, I mean, there's also that argument of like, when people say like, oh, they were just lucky, it's like, yeah, or did they fully prepare themselves so that when the opportunity arose, they were ready to take it?
Yeah.
It's not really luck. Like if you're like, putting all the time and effort, and then when it happens, you're fucking good to go.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like, oh yeah, it just like happened to them. I mean, some people obviously will just be like, well, I
just think it's
the happenstance.
Yeah. You can run that scenario for the same person 1,000 times through. It's not always going to end up with the same outcome.
Yeah.
But now we're just getting into, multiverses and quantum physics and the actual, truth, reality, time. So.
And you kind of alluded to earlier, like there's something that you and I share, which is you love, you kind of like embrace the uncertainty of the future, and you like new things. Do you think that like, I mean, obviously it sounds like curiosity in life plays like a big part in like how you live your life, do you think that keeps it like kind of entertaining is not the right word, but
it keeps me engaged.
Yeah.
And I think
like constantly being curious.
Yeah. Oh my God. Absolutely.
Gives life meaning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily meaning, but it gives you, maybe it gives you purpose. But no, I think with the self-work and just always, and that curiosity. Now, again, I don't know if that's something that's innate though, because I've met people who are always curious, and like, again, that's another one you always hear, like fairly successful, especially on the philosophy side of things, like people with good mindsets. They're always like, you have to be curious. You have to be curious. But I don't know if can you make people curious, or is it just
something you can?
Like I'm definitely of an age now where, and I work, especially in hospitality. This is when we didn't really touch on this, because you work with people younger, people your own age, and generally speaking, I've noticed like, and I get along with young people. Like my friend group is like such a vast array of ages, which I'm very proud of because it just shows my openness, right? And I definitely find that, if there's ever any feedback I get from younger people, it's like, well, we see that you are open and you're curious is a good word. Like I still get excited about learning new things, right? And I can, when I think of my peer group that are my age, a lot of them just don't want to learn anything new, don't want to be curious. And but then again, that's the whole like, well, did life beat them down? Why are they like that? Or why am I still so curious? Why am I still happy to get, learn new things? Or like today up at the lake, when I told people, hey man, this is a once in a blue moon thing where there's snow, the lake is not frozen, the large colors are still in. That happens like once or twice a year. I'm like, I've lived on and off in this area for 30 years and look how excited I am. It still excites me,
Yeah. And so I guess if you get to the point where like nothing makes you curious in life, it's like it's fucking kind of depressing, really.
But that just makes me sad when I see people like that.
Yeah,
like that is the sad thing.
We're
also in a position where we have the means to be curious.
Yeah,
like most of the world. When you're just struggling day to day to survive.
Yeah. I remember having a vivid memory when I left school of being like, I never need to learn anything ever again. Genuinely. I remember, 100%. I remember thinking that, like, thank God I never need to learn anything ever again. And then I got to like,
so interesting.
Left school when I was like 17, and then I got to like 23 and that completely changed, because I traveled, like I moved to Australia and I met people. I got out of the bubble that I was living in the fucking echo chamber.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to a guy that I lived with who's my age, and I was like, I'm actually stupid talking to you. Like, he was like, now, to be fair, he was at university studying, he was studying like kinesiology, which I think is like study of the body and stuff. So he was using a lot of like fucking your lumbar and your this and your that. So kind of like, smart language. But I do remember being like, I am actually an idiot talking to this guy. And it totally like, it really honestly kind of like sparked to like, I want to be smarter. But also I think, it's also the influence. Like my dad's a super smart guy. And I think when you were like, he's the kind of like when we used to go on family holidays, like fucking anywhere, you'd be in a random field in a country like Spain or even the Highlands, and he'd be like, see that rock over there? And you're like, yeah. And he'd be like, do you know how that got there? And I'm like, no, how, like, you know, when I was a kid, I used to just think like how weird that was. And as I got older, I realized how, like, amazing that was that but I guess what I'm getting at there is like, I had the influence of like someone very immediate in my life, like being a very, a very smart person and being like, I want to be, I mean, it's my dad also, and I want to be like my dad probably to a degree. So yeah, it definitely like made me super curious.
Yeah, interesting. And that, you know, because like my background was like, again, that was not something that was instilled in me by my parents at all.
And as I say, they wouldn't instill it, but I think it was just seeing it. You know what I mean? It was just the influence of like, no, you know, like seeing someone like that.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously it was my dad who I have a good relationship with, so I think it was a very positive, because if he was a total cunt and smart, I'd be like, well, fucking all smart people are douchebags, but it definitely wasn't that. But yeah, I think, I think we definitely share that like curiosity and like constant. I still like, you know, even though I'm like feel like I'm constantly trying to learn stuff. I honestly like half the time I just feel like I don't know.
And still getting amazed when you learn new stuff. Yeah. Like that's for me the excitement, the joy. It's joy. It's pure joy when you're like, oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that. Right?
Yeah. And is there anything, I know you were talking obviously specifically about today when you went up to the lake and you were like, this is fucking sweet. But is there anything like what's the thing that makes you most curious right now? AI.
No, wow.
No, forget AI, but like genuine question, what is what do you think right now?
It's still, and this is just from day one, like from as soon as I was old enough to grasp the idea. Like I was one of those kids, like I would see a globe and I'd get so excited. And it's still geography and like just seeing new places, and that still excites me. Even like localized, if I'm driving a road and I've never driven on it before, I get super excited.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, I've never been down this road. So there's definitely something about the physical earth that still excites me. I just want to see this whole planet. Like,
imagine you could go into space.
Yeah, I think there's enough on this planet. Like, you know, that would be fascinating, but I'd
just to see, I'd love to experience that. I'd hate to do it. Like, I think that I know that like going into space and seeing the Earth would be fucking absolutely unbelievable, but I think I don't even like flying.
Oh, really?
Never mind fucking going into space and then coming back down. I would just be like, nah.
Yeah.
I'd just look at the pictures.
Yeah. I get, like, if there's anything that ever makes me sad, is like, there's so many places on the earth that I know are physically so beautiful and they're just inhabited by the worst people.
Yeah. Like where?
Well, like the Middle East. Like, there's so much physical beauty there. And just because of political religious tensions, like I'll never be able to go see.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
That absolutely makes me both sad and extremely angry at the same time.
Yeah, like I'd love to go to Russia, like to see the architecture and stuff like that, but I don't think I would. I mean, certainly not right now. I wouldn't go. I feel like being a guy, I mean, being anyone, but I feel like being a guy like from like North America, like living in North America, obviously, but going there, I would just be like fucking number one to get put straight in jail. They're just like, well, this white guy, he's definitely going to jail here.
Yeah, but that's exactly how I feel about, like, there's so many places in the world that I want to go that I just.
Well, I remember, so there was like, I remember reading it or hearing it or whatever. I read this thing that said, if you imagine that you're on your deathbed and you have your grandkids around you, and I know that everyone's like, you shouldn't tell people how to live your life, but just for the purposes of this story, it was like, if you're on your deathbed and you have your grandkids around you, whatever, and you have to tell them like, this is how you should live your life. Whatever you tell them, that's how you should live your own life. So remember like when I read it or fucking someone asked me, I was like, I want to like go to as many places in the world as I can and have as many experiences as I can in the world.
Yeah.
And that definitely like has shaped, even like, you know, so I mean, like compared to some friends I've had, like I've done like with regards to places, I've been away more. Like I've lived in Australia, I've traveled like 6 months through Asia, like I've now lived in Canada for 5 years. Now I know to other people that's like absolutely nothing, but like to like quite a lot of like people I know, like that would be a shitload. And even me doing all that, I'm still like, oh fuck, there's so much more. Like never lived in a place where I couldn't speak my own language.
Yeah,
you know, never even been to Africa, the continent as a whole, like. I think that not necessarily what makes me sad, but what makes me feel like I need to like go quicker is I'm like, there's so much to see. But then there's also the reality of life. You know, my friends get married in Bali next year, and I'm not just saying this, but like just the finance of getting there. And also like where I am in life, like I kind of would like to buy something to live. So it's like, right, okay, do I go to this place or do I like save the money to buy a house? You know, it's the reality of just being an average person. That's
and also the reality of, and that dynamic has changed so much for like, the generation, like your generation, the one before, after you, like it's heartbreaking how, from an economic standpoint, it's just a complete disaster now. Like you'll never, Gen Z will never own a house.
Yeah.
Ever. Like it's
I don't know how
brutal.
people would, do it without help. I actually don't know how you would. I mean, I definitely know, like my sister, one of them, Sophie's super frugal. So she saved a shitload of money, but dude, she did not do nothing.
Yeah.
Like if she lived in London. So I guess her day-to-day life was kind of like people's holiday, but, if she went on holiday, she'd go back to mom and dad's house.
Yeah.
But she saved her money, but it's because she did fucking nothing really.
Yeah.
But again, she was super social and her job super social, so maybe she's benefited in that way. But I don't know how. I have no idea how people my age.
Yeah, and that just kind of ties back to, like I mentioned, like that's if I died tomorrow, I'd be happy with how I lived, with the experiences I experienced.
Yeah.
I could not, again, that whole 10 years is planning that far ahead when, you don't know what's going to happen, like on a very more intimate level, like get cancer tomorrow or this happens tomorrow. Like, but you've been planning for 10 years. Like, to me, that's not a nice way. That's not a safe way to live, even though most people think that's the safe way to live. Again, I'm not judging people for living that way. It's just, for me, that is a hard no, like, period.
I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, like maybe speaking personally, is the balance. The balance of living in the present, saving for the future, Like, I've put money into like savings and investments and stuff like that because in 30 years time, I want it to have like compounded to X. But like Jack and I were talking about it yesterday, and this is a bit of a tangent to what I'm saying, but the people who are the most successful investors are the dead ones because they just leave it. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent, but it's that kind of balance of living in the now, like me talking about my friend's wedding, like that, like, well, I look back and think of the what I'm thinking about right now, which is saving for the future, which is me wanting to buy a house over the experience of going to his wedding. Like, now there's also just practicalities that I actually might not get the time off work. Because it's like bang in the middle of summer.
That's really fun though. I've been.
Yeah. Is there any place you want to? Is there like if you could go anywhere tomorrow? Is there like a place you would go?
I think if I had the opportunity, just like there's still a few places on my bucket list. Like I've traveled most of the world, but I still want to go to China. I've never been to China.
Yeah, I would love to go.
And even from just like a physical, like I don't think people realize how beautifully there is like physical landscapes in China. It's unreal. Looks like so much fun.
You've been to Japan, yeah?
I've been to China a couple times, but China is definitely on there, and I've only done the northeast side of Africa. I'd like to go do some other parts of Africa, and and one day.
Have you been to Scotland? Is that what you're going to say?
Oh yeah, a couple times, many times, like 3-4 times. If I could live anywhere, like in my dream existence, I live remotely in Iceland. Like, oh yeah, absolutely. Iceland's just.
How have you been?
3 times. Yeah.
And I've never been. I would love to go, but
the landscape is surreal. There's just an energy in Iceland that I don't know how to describe it. And like, it's one of those places, honestly, it's like, you don't understand until you've been there. Like actually those 2 friends I was talking about that are up in Jasper, they're in Iceland right now. And I saw them the day before they left. We went to the show in Calgary. So the next morning we went out for breakfast and we just talked about Iceland, and I kind of gave them, hey, you should go here. And like, she's just been messaging me every day. She's like, this is unreal. Like, and I kind of made them change their itinerary a little bit just because like, no, you need to go here. Like, trust me, based on how I know you two so well, I know that this landscape, particularly in this one part of Iceland, will totally speak to you, and you'll just be like, and she's like, yeah, it's like, I want to move here. I'm like, I know, I want to move here.
Well, I think that's the thing. Like I people talk about like if you won the lottery, like you don't, doesn't necessarily make you happier. But I'm always like, see, if I won the lottery, I would do what I would literally. We're also talking about like not necessarily planning, but I would be like, I'm going to Iceland for as long as the visa allows me to go. I'm going to go to fucking South Africa for as long as the visa. Like, I would just like go. I would do exactly what you and I like with the whole geography.
Oh, 100%. You know, and then but then that ties into like, oh, maybe I should have saved a little more when I was younger, and then. Yeah. But no, like I don't want to, and like especially in hospitality, we see it all the time. I see the people that worked their entire life and now they're in their 60s, 70s, and they're, oh, now we get to travel. They can't experience it like we do. Like, no, even if they're super fit and like in good shape, it's still, they've just that.
It's different.
It's different, man.
Yeah. Because I think that's also the argument of like, not the argument, but it's also the discussion of, do you do, Jack and I were talking about it, but do you do it now when you're young, fit and able? But yeah, maybe you sacrifice a little bit of like progression within like an industry or career or whatever, like, and you need to work later on, or do you work when you're younger, save it all up so that when you're older you can go? But then it is, as you say, it's not a bad, but it's a totally different experience.
But I think you and I are coming at this from the angle of like our backgrounds, like socioeconomic, like that's the choices we kind of think there are. But there's definitely other avenues and people that have been able to like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so you're kind of saying that I have the luxury of making that choice.
Like, well, the luxury of it, but we're also not like the ultra luxury of like, you know,
Nepo babies.
Or, you know, the people that did really work really hard, but like were millionaires by 30 and now they can do that, you know. Sometimes I have that envy a little bit, to be honest. Like, oh, maybe if I had just like done something a little different so that I had $1 million by the time I was 30 and invested it wisely, now I could just live up, blah, 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 blah.
I know, that's where it's like, if you get the money, I would just, But look, I appreciate you sitting down with me. I mean, we literally live together, so you sit with me all the time, but I appreciate you sitting down with me and bearing with me as I was fucking around with trying to get this camera to work. But because I honestly, I love your perspective and stuff, and I do feel like I'm kind of shadowing your life. So I was like, how does JM do this stuff so that I can...
Yeah, I doubt I answered anything you had.
No, you did.
Okay.
All right, cool. Well, thank you.
That was super fun. Yeah. Do it again.